Welcome to the latest installment of a series that we like to call That Leslie Sound.
In this series, we're going to attempt to cover every Leslie pedal on the used and the new market. If you want to know more about what pedals are in the series, click on the card above to watch the series opener.
And if you want to know what That Leslie Sound is, click on the card that will take you to a YouTube playlist that you'll hear many famous songs that use that Leslie sound. Welcome to the series. Today, That Leslie Sound is being brought to you by the Korg Toneworks G4 Rotary Speaker Simulator, and the Beard's going to show you what it sounds like.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. He shoots, he scores.
So like PJ said, that was the G4 from Toneworks and running in stereo. So if you weren't listening with headphones on, if you go back, you can kind of get an idea what that sounds like in stereo. So for the rest of this, will be a mono. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to do is put a little stereo thing up front, switch to mono so you can hear them both, because we're figuring most people probably running a mono.
Yeah, but then there's also people like, hey, what does it sound like in stereo? So We're trying to do a little something for everyone.
Although I guess now with so many people going to like modelers and stuff, maybe they are running stereo.
Maybe.
All right. So anyway,
different show
we
haven't filmed yet because we want to stay on the air.
Tune in. Please subscribe for more. That's right. So this is the Toneworks, and this is a really interesting pedal. And I have to admit, this is one of the first ones we got in for the series.
Yeah.
I sent you a picture of it. You thought I was joking.
I did. I'm like, what did he just buy? It's like 1993
or 1985 called. Yeah. They want their
exactly.
modeler back.
Right.
So yeah, it does have that kind of old school look to it.
Yeah.
Not for the faint of heart, I don't think at first. When we first plugged it in, we were kind of like, not so sure. And we think maybe the way we had it set up. Mm-hmm. There's two knobs on here. We're not going to talk a whole lot about the input and the output knob. And there's a little peak light here. So plug your guitar in and start playing it kind of at full volume until you're peaking. Roll back a little bit under that for the input. And we're finding the output about 50% works. Mm-hmm. But once you get those dialed in, you start to get into the good sounds. And it sounds amazing in stereo. It really sounds nice in stereo. Mm-hmm. So I think what we're going to do is just run through the knobs real quick. And then Pat's going to play the Leslie riff fast and slow. And then we'll get into how those knobs kind of affect things.
And I feel compelled just to interject real quick. This was the first one I saw, right? And still trying to understand the workings of a Leslie. This does about everything a real Leslie speaker does, to include mic placement near or far, how far two mics would be. The rotors can go different speed. It was like a good introduction for me. It was a little overwhelming, as you said, but it's a really good introduction. So I overuse the word robust, but really robust pedal that really emulates pretty much all of the factors of a Leslie.
And I would be afraid to list the people that have used this. But if you go and you look up like who's used this pedal as far as artists go,
right,
and you'll see names like probably Warren Haynes. Kind of thinking Robin Ford maybe. but don't quote me on that. But you'll see names of some pretty famous people that have used this and been successful with it. So it has a following.
Yeah.
And it's a well-regarded one. So from our input-output, we get into the first thing where we have a horn and rotor. You have two knobs for that. You have the acceleration and you have the speed. We'll talk more about those in a minute. Then we have a balance knob, which is balancing between the fast rotor and the slow, well, the rotor and the horn, I should say.
Which is nicely indicated here on the pedal. Like, here's the horn, here's the rotor, there's the balance between the two. It's like someone knew what they were doing.
Right. And then we have two mic placement knobs. One's for distance and one's for spread. Let's talk about spread a little bit right now. Spread is, if you were miking in stereo, miking a real Leslie in stereo, you'd put two mics on it. And so this is how far apart those two mics are. Mm-hmm. So you'll notice right now we have the spread turned all the way to off or to mono. Mm-hmm. And so the recommended setting for this in mono is to run that at mono. So my guess is that since you're only running out one side, when you change that, it changes what actually is coming out that side. And although we did feel like it was kind of neat, but we're just going to leave it there for that. And we'll come back to that. Then we have a drive knob, which we will come back to. Of course, on the pedals, you have a bypass, which is really strange in this one, because when you press the bypass and the light comes on, you're bypassed. Which is counterintuitive to me. I feel like when you press the bypass and the light comes on, it's on.
Yeah.
Right. The drive, to turn the drive on, you have a stop button that just stops the spinning altogether, but leaves the effect on. And then you have the speed to go between fast and slow. And the last thing that we're going to mention, but not show you, and maybe you're feeling like we're not showing you anything, but is the right restore. There is the ability to, once you have everything where you want it, store that. And then you can come back and find where those settings are. So the use that I would see is to be able to store what you really like if you're going to go tweak and be sure you can get back to what you had to begin with.
Because this was designed before the cell phone camera where you could take a picture of your settings. You'd have had to take a picture, go into a dark room, do the whole thing. Hopefully it wasn't blurry. So,
right. And honestly, when you compare that to what's out today as far as being able to save presets and stuff like that, it's not that impressive, and we're not sure many people would use it. So we're gonna kind of stay away from that. But it's in the manual. You can download the manual online, so if it's something you want to get into. We're really kind of interested in the sound. So do you want to play through the riff we've been using? Yep. Fast. Yep. Go through it a couple times. I'll kick it to slow. Go through it a couple times. Maybe I'll kick it back to fast for the last one.
Super Hampton through a Fender Hot Rod Deluxe.
Right. Nothing else in the chain.
Right. Little reverb in the amp. Okay. And we're starting clearly with the fast.
Right. Okay. So I'll let you go once on bypass.
Okay. Which there, yeah. Try
the clean, and then we'll turn it, yeah. All right. So let's get into, where to start? Let's start with the acceleration and the speed. So the acceleration affects the rotor. But it doesn't just affect the rotor. So you would think, all right, I turn it down, the rotor gets slower. I turn it up, the rotor gets faster. Yeah, it does. It talks about affecting how much energy, in the manual, how much energy is kind of needed to make that thing kick in. So in addition to affecting just the rotor, it's affecting how fast the rotor will spin up and slow down when you go between fast and slow, how fast the rotor will slow down and brake if you hit the stop button. So and then also, if you go the whole way over to the left, you're actually stopping the rotor. So the horns are still spinning wherever you had them, but the bottom rotor stopped. So if you just give a chord or two.
Which is nice because it says stop.
And if we kick it up just a little bit. So let's do a chord. I'll hit the speed so we can go from fast to slow to hear that with it on just a little bit. So that took a good bit of time, right?
Yeah, you could hear it when it went faster. It kept speeding up.
So, and then the opposite side of that would be to go really high. So maybe do the same thing that's slow, and I'll just keep going back and forth.
You want to start on slow or fast?
Let's start on fast.
Okay.
So not only did that speed up how fast the rotor was going, but you hear the ramp time is faster too. It ramps between the two faster. So if we take that back kind of in the middle, where we had it before, let's look at the horn. So if I turn the horn to stop...
It's going to sound very different.
that sh-
Yeah, very different when it first started out. It was more phasey sounding because you didn't have that high top end, and it was that slow, just of the rotor on the
I
bottom.
wonder if that's more like the Leslie 16. If you're able to then start dialing in the difference between a Leslie 16 and a 122, which we've talked a lot.
Right.
Those have been like the two that we've really kind of focused on in the series. There's other Leslies out there, obviously. But the 16 would be your stationary speaker with the spinning baffle, no horns. And then the 122 would add the horns on top of that. And it's I think there's more of a difference in that because I think the 122 would have the tube preamp in it and stuff like that, I believe, as well. So let's talk balance a little bit, too. We could do the same kind of thing. We could turn the balance all the way down. You could play up and down that, and we'll just go from off to 12 o'clock to full. That gives you the kind of the whole range. You have to then use your imagination to figure out what the in-between sound like. So...
Definitely a drastic difference.
Yeah, because you're getting just all tops or all bottoms.
Right. It goes from like a blanket over the amp to AM radio, in that variation there.
And I like say you wanted to go for the Leslie 16 sound that was just the rotating rotor. You don't necessarily want to lose the highs.
Right.
So being able to take the speed of the rotor out might be a better solution than leaning the balance all the way towards the rotor, because you're not losing the high side. We tend, well, I don't know if Pat does, I tend to land with just pushing a little bit towards the horn so you hear that.
It does sound more organ-like when you get a little bit more of that top end really spinning. Yeah.
So what else we have? We have the placement, the mic placement. So obviously, since we're running in mono, we're not going to play with the spread of the mics, but we can look at distance. So if we turn all the way to the left, that should be very...
Is it close?
Right. It says off mic and on mic, so we're going to actually figure this out by listening to it, I think. So, all the way to the right, the on mic is closer to the amp. Because you're getting more of a
throb.
Right? So, picture your sound wave coming by the mic. If the mic is really close, when the wave passes, it's going to pick up that gap. But if the mic is far away and your sound wave has had time to spread out, it doesn't have as much time to pick up the gap before the next one hits.
Yeah.
Which is the theory behind it, I guess.
Right.
So, yikes. All right. So, and then the last thing, well, two more things. The stop button. So maybe just show that really quick. So what this is doing is stopping the rotor. So if you play that, you can play that same thing again. Because of where we have the acceleration, I guess, it took a long time for that bottom one to slow down. You can still hear it kind of... But basically, when you disengage, think of a belt driving this thing that's spinning over the speaker. When you hit the stop on a lesle, you disengage that somehow. So it doesn't just hard stop.
It slows down.
It winds down and... Excuse me. And then the last thing would be the drive. So... Start with the drive down, we'll kick the drive on, and then slowly roll it the whole way up and see where...
slow, it was like, hello, David Gilmour, how are you?
Right. When you get slow, it sounds...
Yeah.
For some reason, the built-in drives on these, I think, often sound good with the slow speed.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like some of the other ones you'll probably watch, we weren't really wild about the drive on some of them. Mm-hmm. But this was one we said it's a usable drive, in our opinion.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, one downside, and we can talk downside, I guess, because for me, potentially be the size.
Right.
You know, there's...
Sure.
If you have a situation where you could leave a pedal that size, which I do, but I have another one that I like.
Yes, you do.
That's coming up in a future...
For good reason.
Yeah, future episode. But, so the size is a little bit... I mean, this...
It's older technology, right? I mean,
right.
It's the flip phone of rotary speakers, to go back to the phone analogy, because I'm a 12-year-old girl.
But commands a lot of...
It sounds great.
They can be pretty expensive if you find used ones out there.
Yeah.
They can be pretty expensive. And I think we did pretty good on this one and probably pass some of that on. When we can't keep them all.
Right.
I'd like to keep them all.
Right.
We can't keep them all. So if we pass this one on, probably pass on a fairly good price on it, I think. I watched for about 2 years before I was able to... Yeah, that's the one. So what else? Anything else? I think that is it.
I think it's it. Like I said, when you broke it out, once I got past laughing that it wasn't a joke, and I came in here and sat down, at first I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so many parameters. How do you get it? I mean, oddly enough, when we ended, everything sounds pretty good, straight up.
Right.
I'm screaming at that probably. Except for the spread, which we have off because we're running it in mono. But like that is a really nice, usable sound that most of the controls in the middle are at straight up at noon, and the other ones aren't far off. Like,
and if you have the ability to run stereo,
yeah, it sounded really good.
This one sounds really good.
Yeah, it did. It made a comeback, right? Because I had very low expectations after the first time we plugged it in, and we tried run it through the loop and tried other stuff, and I'm just like, I don't get why you waited 2 years to get this. And then you plugged it in stereo, and we got it dialed in right. And I'm like, that is really nice. Like you take away the cheesiness factor of the look, it was fantastic. Like, I mean, if you just get past that mental part of it, it's very hard for a vain person like me. But when you like heard it, oh my gosh! And when we did it in stereo, and I was sitting like 2 feet from it, it sounded great.
I like the switch. I will give it though. When you say downsize is maybe size, the upsize of the size is the layout of the switches, where you have the bypass, the drive, the stop, and the speed. You have everything right there. Mm-hmm. This is the only one that I can think of. No, the option 5 too. One other pedal that had an option to press the drive and kick the drive on. The only one I can think of that we thought had a really, really usable drive that we liked. The option 5 had a drive and you could click it on, but I'm not sure that we were as big as fans of that particular drive as we would be of this one. For other people, that might be perfect, though.
Yeah, I like it.
I like it, too. So with that, the regular YouTube stuff, we're putting out new content basically every Wednesday at noon and Saturday at noon. Got a whole bunch of cool stuff coming on.
And we do that. We try to premiere them where one or both of us will be on, and if people want to join in a conversation about it,
right?
Just, so if you subscribe and get notifications, you'll get a notification that we're going live as a premiere, and you can interact with us while we're having lunch at the local grocery store or at the break room at school.
Right.
So anyway, sorry.
Right, no, perfect. It's perfect because we've been trying to be. I think we've missed one or two, but we've been trying to be there for the premieres. And like I said, that's every Wednesday at noon and typically Saturday at noon. Other cool stuff happening. Make sure you check out the interview series. We've been really happy with that, and we've talked to some really cool people. Make sure, we get the Leslie series that I would say we're in what? Are we on the final stretch? Or
Two-thirds?
2/3 of the way, maybe?
Did we mention 23 pedals?
Yeah. So there's 23 pedals in this series. Check those out. Anyway, I guess what we're saying is subscribe, hit the notification button. Please stop by Instagram and Facebook and check those out. Post content there, and you might get an idea of what's coming up. Yep. And with that,
I'm PJ, on behalf of the Beard, reminding you, no matter what you hear, you never have too much gear. I'm driving it. Muy horrible.